seeing games escape a horrible fate of being lost to the void is something which utterly excites me, especially when they were all but finished before fate intervened. While most recovered games see the light of day thanks to the work of dedicated enthusiasts, sometimes we're lucky to see a lost game brought out into a wider light, which is the case with one particular game called Hardcore, or should I say, Ultracore. This is Beyond The Scanlines, a series focusing on interesting games on classic computing and gaming platforms. Under its original name, Ultracore was the work of Digital Illusions, at the time known for their Amiga pinball masterpieces Pinball Dreams and Pinball Fantasies. It was kind of an attempt to branch out with development leading on the Mega Drive, with an Amiga conversion planned afterwards. Development proceeded quite smoothly, and the game was coming close to completion, until its publisher Psygnosis decided to pull the plug, observing that the market was shrinking, which was kind of expected in the lead up to the arrival of next generation console hardware. And so it lay dormant. But now, in space year 2019, Ultracore rises from the depths. Firstly as part of the firmware for Analogue's clone console, the Mega Sg. Ultracore puts you in the combat gear of an unspecified soldier. You've been sent out into a lab which has been attacked by robotic forces on a mission to wipe out humanity. As you descend into the labs, you'll find your commander, who lays down the details, and from there, it's time to run and gun your way across 6 levels and blast a whole pile of robots to save humanity. You start out armed with a basic pulse rifle, which can do plenty of damage, but as you explore the levels, you'll encounter weapon crates which offer upgrades. Ultracore differs from most shooters as, rather than simply have the one weapon with infinite ammo, you've got the choice between your starting pulse rifle and whichever secondary weapon you pick up. This choice between which weapon you'll use at any time is critical. Whilst your starting rifle has unlimited ammo, the weapons you pick up don't. You'll have to locate ammo packs spread across the levels, and so it becomes a tactical choice to make sure you've got enough ammo handy for when you battle the tougher enemies. As for the levels themselves, compared to its run and gun inspirations, the levels are large and well structured, meaning that whilst there is plenty to do and lots of secrets to locate, all of this is shown on end of level summary, you're going to have your work cut out for you as you move through. The mechanical forces are everywhere, and they can be quite devious to battle with. There are gun and missile emplacements alongside all manner of walking, crawling, and even flying threats. The drones which scoot across the ground at you quite rapidly easily serve as a tormentor after quite a while, as do the smaller flying drones which lie in wait contrasted against the darker backgrounds. But it's not all about running and gunning and whatever else. No, you're going to also be locating keycards to open up sections of the levels, obtain security passes to unlock terminals, and they're not that frequent in play, but you'll also be able to access maps when accessing them to see the lay of the land. Talking about controls, at the outset the game gives you 2 methods of control. The first allows you to point freely in any of 8 directions while moving, and I've got to say I'm not a big fan of this one. I find that whilst it's handy for free firing, it does make some movement and some bits of targeting a little fiddly, especially when you can't easily crouch to avoid some enemy weapons fire. The second mode gives you way more freedom. It also lets you pull off moves like being able to walk backwards whilst firing, and also gives you more nuanced aiming of your gun, and this becomes really handy in sneakily trying to take out emplacements and enemies without running blindly into them. And that's something which happened for me on more than one occasion. At its heart, the controls are centered around the classic 3-button Mega Drive pad. One button fires, the second is to jump, and the third is a combination one used for accessing terminals or activating switches, alongside changing your weapon by holding it in and tapping down on the pad, or using one of the smart bobs you've picked up by holding it down and tapping up. Which button serves which function is something which can be swapped around from the options screen. but the defaults work well enough. B is used to fire, C to jump, and A is your action button. I do have to say though, I keep forgetting to use my smart bombs, so kinda wish the game had support for the 6-button controller, just because it'd be a little easy to just hit Z or something instead. But sometimes traditions really do mean keeping to how things originally were designed. Where Ultracore truly shines is in its visual and aural sections. The art style is very much that 90s European style, which is no surprise considering it was a game developed in Europe. But I love the feeling that it adds, from the skylines of the opening surface section approaching the lab, to the mix of colder metallic colours for the structures inside the labs versus the warmer colours of the ground. It really feels like a dead set of subterranean construction to conceal something built beneath the ground. This also extends to the enemies, whether the small grunt drones, the various robots, or even worse, the gigantic monstrosities you'll face at the end of each stage, all are well designed and fluidly animated. In the case of the latter as well, their scale is just as imposing as one would expect. Onto the sounds. The effects are solid, giving you a lot of punch for weapons fire, explosions, alongside the usual tings for collecting upgrades and coins. It's matched with a soundtrack which delivers plenty of punch as well, because that really shouldn't be a surprise. It is a bummer there isn't a sound test available, because let's face it, most of the time you're going to be hearing the sound effects drone over the music because there is so much blasting going on. And I guess that brings me to the big question. How can you actually play Ultracore? As of the time of record, the only real option you have is to get Analogue's Mega Sg. Now, of course, I think it's a great piece of kit, but I'm coming from a position where I don't have an existing Mega Drive collection. So it's been a bit of a from-scratch proposition. As its recovery effort was led by boutique publisher Strictly Limited Games, the good news is that it's also going to see wider release through a port to modern systems. At the time of recording, that indicates the PlayStation 4, PlayStation Vita, and Nintendo Switch. So it gives you a bit of a diverse means of release. I'm actually really excited that it's going to be available in a modern form and not just for the Mega Drive hardware. Despite being lost away for 25 years, Ultracore still feels an incredibly fresh experience to play. Just as it would have been had it been released in 1994. It's a tough blend of run and gun platforming action, and I've found it to be really engaging in the time I've spent with it so far. Whilst it's going to have a limited audience, at least in its current form, I strongly recommend you take the time to check it out once it makes its way out to modern hardware. And yeah, if you are considering a Mega Sg, it's certainly a lovely cherry on top of the cake for getting that particular bit of hardware. Which brings me to the end of yet another Beyond The Scanlines. I've enjoyed this look at a lost game saved from the depths of obscurity, so let me know what you think. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, click the thumbs up button. It really helps it get spread through the network, and most importantly, if you've not already, do consider hitting the subscribe button and hitting the bell flag. I know it's annoying, but it really helps you get notified when new episodes come out. And finally, if you really enjoy what I'm doing and you've got the bit of coin to spare, considering supporting the channel on Patreon. There's a link for that in the video description. So I guess that means it's nothing more than say thank you all very much for watching. Yeah, I know it's a console game, but I'm a bit of a fan of the work of DICE, and this little lost piece was certainly well worth checking out in my eyes. Besides, I like to think of the channel as being a home to provide a well-rounded retro experience, and I think that makes things certainly interesting for sure. Am I right? Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the episode.